The last 24 hours could not have gone much better if you are a Golden State Warriors fan. After everything that had been building up since the preseason, this game felt like a release of pressure. There had been a lingering frustration hanging over the team, especially when you look back at the recent history against Portland. Whether you count the preseason or not, the reality was that the Warriors had dropped multiple straight games to a team sitting below the 500 mark. And that is never a good look for a roster that still believes it can compete at a high level. That is why this performance mattered so much. From the opening tip to the final buzzer, the Warriors controlled the rhythm, imposed their style, and never allowed the game to slip into that uncomfortable territory that has haunted them at times. This season, what stood out immediately was the overall balance in how the Warriors approached the game. This was not one of those nights where everything depended on one player getting hot and bailing the team out. The ball moved, the spacing looked cleaner, and there was a clear intention to make the defense react instead of simply reacting themselves. Stephen Curry did not need to score a ton to influence the game, and that might be the most encouraging sign of all. Seeing him rack up 11 assists showed a level of control and trust in his teammates that has not always been present. He picked his spots, drew defenders, and consistently made the right read, which opened up opportunities across the floor. Jimmy Butler also gave them a solid outing. Even without crossing the 20-point mark, his impact was felt in other ways, through physical drives, defensive effort, and the kind of composure that settles everyone else down when things get choppy. But the biggest talking point coming out of this game has to be D'Anthony Melton. His production was not just a nice bonus, it was a statement, leading the team with a strong scoring performance while being efficient from the field and from three-point range reinforced an idea that has been gaining traction over the past couple of weeks. Melton is not just a role player filling minutes. He is actively reshaping how the rotation looks and how the front office might think about the roster moving forward. When a player like Melton consistently delivers, it naturally creates pressure elsewhere. Suddenly, guys on larger contracts or players who have been viewed as longer-term pieces start to feel more expendable. That is not necessarily a bad thing. It creates flexibility, and flexibility is everything in this league. Moses Moody, Buddy Hield, and even Jonathan Kuminga all fall into that conversation now, not because they lack talent, but because Melton's emergence changes the math. It gives the Warriors options, especially as the trade deadline approaches. And options are something this team has desperately needed. That said, the game was far from perfect, and there were some red flags that cannot be ignored just because the final score looked good. One of the most glaring issues was rebounding. Losing the battle on the glass by such a wide margin is a problem, especially for a team that already walks a fine line with its size. Giving up that many boards puts extra pressure on the defense and limits transition opportunities. This has been a recurring theme, and it once again highlighted the reality that most teams still enjoy a significant size advantage over Golden State. The Warriors are, in many ways, still living in the small ball era that once defined their dominance. The difference now is that the league has adapted. Small ball only works when every piece fits perfectly and when you have the right personnel to make up for the lack of size. Even teams that once thrived with smaller lineups are starting to shift. You can see it across the league, where traditional centers are reclaiming value because of their ability to control the paint, secure rebounds, and punish mismatches. Golden State felt that pressure again in this game, even in a win, and it is something that will only become more pronounced against elite opponents. There were still positives in the numbers, though. Hitting 40% from three-point range was a much-needed sight. After several rough shooting nights, this team has always lived and died by the three, but it was encouraging to see a willingness to mix in mid-range looks as well. That balance makes the offense less predictable and gives them a better chance to survive cold stretches from deep. Defensively, they also did a solid job limiting certain players, holding key rebounders in check and preventing second-chance opportunities from completely getting out of control. Looking deeper into individual performances, Melton's efficiency jumped off the page. Scoring in limited minutes while shooting confidently from beyond the arc only strengthens his case as a core rotation piece. It also forces difficult questions about how much patience the team should have with others. Brandon Podziemski, for example, showed flashes again, knocking down shots and contributing offensively, but the inconsistency remains. There are moments where he looks like a connector who could bridge the gap into the next era. And then there are stretches where his ceiling feels clearly defined and limited. That comparison inevitably brings up memories of Curry's early days, coming into the league. Curry was already viewed as a special talent, even if injuries slowed his ascent. The expectations were different, and the upside was obvious, with Podziemski. The projection feels more modest. That does not make him a bad player, but it does make him a valuable asset. In a different way, selling high, if the right opportunity presents itself, might be the smartest move, especially for a team that is still trying to maximize the remaining prime years of its core. All of this naturally feeds into the bigger conversation about trades and roster upgrades. Dominating Portland was a step in the right direction, but it does not erase the larger needs. The Warriors still lack a reliable third scorer who can consistently shoulder the load when defenses lock in on Curry and Butler. There have already been games where those to put up big numbers, and it still was not enough, simply because no one else could reliably fill the gap. That is a dangerous place to be, especially as the schedule toughens and the postseason approaches. The idea of swinging for a high upside guard has started to gain attention, particularly when you consider the financial and competitive landscape around the league. Big contracts, long-term commitments, and teams prioritizing flexibility over pure talent have changed how stars are valued. A player can be immensely talented and still be viewed as a complicated asset if the contract limits future moves. That dynamic opens doors that might have seemed impossible a few years ago. And the Warriors are in a position where taking a calculated risk could make sense. At the same time, any aggressive move on the perimeter has to be matched by addressing the interior. Rebounding and physicality are not optional. They are requirements if this team wants to be taken seriously. In a playoff series, stretch bigs have their place, but there is still immense value in having someone who can control the paint, absorb contact, and create second-chance opportunities. The numbers around rebounding and interior defense continue to point in that direction, and ignoring them would be a mistake right now. The Warriors are hovering above 500, slowly climbing and trying to define their identity. Every win like this builds confidence, but it also sharpens the focus on what is missing. The encouraging part is that the answers are becoming clearer. Roles are starting to solidify. Certain players are separating themselves from the pack, and the front office is being handed clearer information with each game. If this upward trend continues, the next few weeks could be pivotal in determining just how far this team is willing to go to chase another deep postseason run. As the conversation shifts beyond this single win, the focus naturally turns to how the Warriors position themselves for what comes next. Beating Portland the way they did was important, but it also served as a reminder that this roster is still a work in progress. There is a clear tension between trying to stay competitive right now and preparing for the future. And that tension shows up in every rotation decision and every rumor that starts to circulate. The front office cannot afford to be passive, especially with so many teams in the conference jockeying for playoff position, and marginal improvements often making the difference between home court advantage and the play-in tournament. One of the most pressing questions continues to revolve around finding a reliable third scoring option. The games where Stephen Curry and Jimmy Butler both carry a heavy offensive load have exposed just how thin the margin can be when the rest of the lineup struggles to contribute consistently. When defenses key in on those two, the offense can stall, possessions become rushed, and the team starts relying too heavily on difficult shots. That is not a sustainable formula, particularly against disciplined playoff defenses that are built to exploit those weaknesses over a 7-game series. This is where the idea of pursuing another high-level creator starts to make sense, even if it comes with risk. Around the league, teams are becoming increasingly aware that long-term financial flexibility can outweigh raw talent, especially when a contract stretches years into the future. That reality has already reshaped how front offices evaluate star players, and it creates opportunities for teams willing to absorb salary in exchange for upside. For the Warriors, that calculus is complicated by their own payroll, but it is not impossible, especially if they are willing to part with younger pieces who have not yet fully carved out their roles. Any move of that magnitude would have ripple effects throughout the roster. Young players who have been developing within the system would suddenly find themselves either taking on reduced roles or being packaged in deals. That is the difficult part of trying to contend while transitioning between eras. Development takes patience, but championship windows demand urgency. Balancing those two forces is one of the hardest challenges in professional sports. And it is a challenge the Warriors are facing head-on right now. At the same time, the interior issues cannot be pushed to the side. Rebounding, rim protection, and physical presence in the paint remain glaring needs. The modern game values spacing and versatility, but it has also rediscovered the importance of size. Especially when the pace slows down in the postseason, possessions become more deliberate. Every missed shot matters more, and second chance points can swing entire games without a dependable presence inside. The Warriors risk being worn down by teams that can punish mismatches and dominate the glass. This is where the discussion around acquiring a traditional big man gains traction. Even in limited minutes, a player who can consistently grab rebounds, set hard screens, and deter drives can change the complexion of a game. It would also allow the Warriors to be more flexible with their lineups, instead of constantly having to overhelp or scramble defensively. The small ball identity has been a hallmark of this franchise, but clinging to it without adjustment could ultimately hold them back. Another layer to all of this is the psychological impact of accountability within the locker room. One of the understated strengths of the Warriors over the years has been the presence of veteran leaders who set the tone. Players like Curry and Draymond Green have built a culture where effort and focus are non-negotiable. Adding new pieces, whether through trades or lineup changes, has to fit into that culture. Talent alone is not enough. The players brought in must be able to accept their roles, respond to criticism, and elevate their play when the stakes rise. You can already see how that accountability influences players. Like Anthony Melton, his confidence, decisiveness, and willingness to embrace his role have been contagious. He plays with an edge that this team needs, and his performance has forced the coaching staff to rethink certain assumptions. When a player consistently produces within the structure of the system, it becomes harder to justify minutes. For others who may have higher profiles but lower impact, that internal competition can be healthy, as long as it remains focused on winning. The upcoming stretch of games will provide even more clarity. Facing opponents with size, depth, and playoff aspiration will test whether the improvements seen against Portland are sustainable or situational. These are the matchups where weaknesses are exposed and strengths are validated. How the Warriors respond in those moments will say a lot about their true ceiling this season. Close games, physical battles, and hostile environments tend to strip away illusions and reveal what a team really is. There is also the matter of momentum in the standings. Hovering just a few games above 500 keeps the Warriors within striking distance, but it leaves little room for error. A short losing streak could undo weeks of progress, while a strong run could suddenly put them in a much more comfortable position. That volatility increases the pressure to make the right decisions, both on the court and in the front office. Every move feels amplified when the margin is that thin. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Dubs updates. Let's keep going. In a development that has sent shockwaves through the basketball world, rumors are swirling that the Golden State Warriors have orchestrated a trade of unprecedented magnitude, one that could completely reshape the landscape of the NBA this season. Sources close to the team suggest that the Warriors are exploring options to bring none other than LeBron James to the Bay Area. A move that, if confirmed, would instantly turn the franchise into an even more formidable powerhouse. The speculation comes amid a flurry of whispers in league circles, with insiders claiming that Golden State's front office has been in advanced discussions with parties connected to James. While details remain murky, the potential implications are staggering. A lineup featuring the sharpshooting core of Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green alongside one of the greatest players of all time could redefine championship expectations. Analysts are already debating how the team's offensive and defensive strategies might evolve with James in the mix, imagining a blend of veteran leadership, playmaking, and scoring versatility that could be almost impossible to defend. Fans are understandably electrified by the possibility. Social media platforms have erupted with speculation, memes, and debates over how this rumored addition might affect the Warriors' chemistry and title prospects. Meanwhile, rival teams are reportedly bracing for a seismic shift, aware that the Bay Area squad could become nearly untouchable if the deal comes to fruition. Some skeptics question whether financial constraints or player fit could derail such an ambitious maneuver, but the sheer audacity of the rumor has captured the imagination of the basketball community. League insiders caution that, at this stage, nothing is confirmed, and the story could evolve in unpredictable ways. Yet, the very notion of LeBron James donning a Warriors jersey has already fueled endless discussion about potential lineups, playoff dynamics, and the future trajectory of the NBA, whether the deal materializes or not. One thing is clear, the conversation around the Warriors just changed dramatically, and fans across the country are watching closely, eager for what could be the most sensational roster shakeup in recent memory. Stay updated exclusively with the latest Dub Nation news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep getting daily updates on the Warriors. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Your input is essential for the Dubs community. Stay tuned for the next video.